Alright guys, welcome back to the next video in our series. In this video we're going to be talking about HTML tags and HTML attributes. And attributes go into tags, and tags are basically like the what makes up an element on a page. So see this diagram here? We have it says element at the top, and it's showing you that this P is a P element. P stands for paragraph in HTML. And to make this whole element, it consists of three parts. You have the opening tag, which is a less than sign, the P, and a greater than sign. You have the content. This is sample text. So this is the actual text that's in the P tag or the paragraph. And then you have to close it off to let the computer know that, hey, that's the end of my paragraph tag or element. And to do that, it's the less than sign, backward slash, the P again, and the greater than sign. Okay? So you don't have to remember all of the syntax, because you can always look up how to make an element in HTML on Google. And you can also use autocomplete. All of the text editors that we're going to be using, or that you'll use, like VS Code or any other one, it's going to have autocomplete to where you can just type in a letter P and then hit tab, and it'll write out a whole P tag for you, and then you can just put your content in there. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and show you a couple. We're going to go jump into our code here. So remember, we made this, if you're following along with the whole course, we made this HTML course folder, and then we're just putting all of our files for all the videos in here with examples. So I'm going to go ahead and make a new file, and I'm going to call it HTML-tags-and-attributes. Colors, whatever you want. And then I'll say .html, because this is going to be a .html document. And I'm going to hit enter. And then I'm going to get my HTML boilerplate by doing shift exclamation and tab. And then we'll just title the document HTML tags and attributes. And then we'll go ahead and pull up this document live in our web browser by hitting our go live down here. All right, so there we have it. See our title here, HTML tags and attributes, came up here, and now we're updating this live. So we'll go ahead now and we'll do some popular tags. So one of the tags that you're going to be using a lot in HTML is going to be headings, and those are H1, H2, H3, and it goes all the way up to H6 for heading 6. But so an H1 tag, it's got the opening and closing H1, and then you can put like content in between the tags. So my heading will put, and you'll be using headings a lot. So for H1s, you're only supposed to have one H1 per page, and it's supposed to be the largest font size. So that's just like one of the rules of HTML. We'll get into that more in a headings video that I make, but yeah, it's just it's like a little rule. And then you can say like H2, my heading will be smaller. Save it, see how it's smaller, and then H3, just put my headings one more time, and it'll even be smaller. Okay, so you'll be using headings a lot, and you'll notice in HTML that your elements are going to appear on the page in the order they were made. Okay, so that's why the H1 appears first, the H2 second, H3 third. All your elements are going to stack and appear in the order that you're making them. All right. And then another thing about HTML is you can put like a ton of white space in between stuff, and this might auto format, but it's not going to affect your page if you do that. Like it kind of just ignores white space like that. Most text editors like VS Code have oops, let's make this number 3, guys. Sorry about that. Let's do 3- so that everything's in order. Thought I did that. Okay. So most text editors like VS Code, whenever you save, it's going to have an auto formatter built in, so it'll fix that white space anyway. But just know that white space is not going to It's not going to affect your document. See, I threw this error message because I changed the name of the file and now it can't find it. So let's reopen it. Let's close it and then hit go live. So to close it, you just click on port and it'll close it and then you hit go live again. Okay. There we go. So our file's back. But yeah, that white space, as you can see, I've saved it and it made no difference. Okay. So things appear in order. White space doesn't matter, but don't have it. But it'll be auto formatted anyway when you save. So you shouldn't have to worry about it. So, all right, so we have headings. We have the P tag. So I'm going to generate a P tag in VS Code by just typing P and hitting tab, and it'll have the opening and closing P tags. And then in the middle, we'll write our content. I'll say this is my paragraph. And save, and then our document is updated. And then what else? Another very common one that you'll be using is an A tag. A stands for anchor, and an anchor tag or an A tag is a link. And we know that web pages are full of links everywhere. They're basically just a collection of links nowadays. So I'm going to type A, hit tab, and then there's my link tag. Now we have our opening tag. We have this thing called an href, which I'll explain what that is. And we have our closing tag. And then you can put your text, whatever you want your link text to be, you put. So we can just say like, this is my link. Okay. And then we have a link here. And then we click it and it doesn't go anywhere because we don't have this thing called an href. So that's going to bring us to our next thing that we're going to talk about. And that is HTML attributes. So let me go ahead and pull up another image here that will show you what an attribute looks like. And right here, so this is another example of an HTML element, but this time, so it has like an opening P tag, a closing P tag in the content, but it has this thing in it labeled called an attribute and a value. Okay, so what attributes are for elements is they give additional information to your elements, your HTML elements that, and for some elements like the link that we're about to make, they're necessary. You have to have certain attributes so it's not going to work correctly. Okay. So let's go back to our anchor tag, and the built-in attribute for anchor tags is called href. And href is in between the href. So we have href equal and quotes. In between the quotes, you want to put where you want the link to go. Okay, so the href attribute tells an anchor tag where the link should go. So I'm just going to go into another page, open up another page and type in espn.com. I'm going to copy it. I'm going to do control copy or command copy on Mac. I'm going to hit control or command V to paste it in here. And now we're going to go back. We hit save. And now I'm going to click on the link, and this should take me to ESPN now. Let's see. And it did. Bam. Pretty cool, huh? So that href element tells you where to take it, okay? And there's other attributes that you can add for links. I'm going to have a separate video just on links. We're not going to get too much into it now, but that's just an example of a tag that needs an attribute required to work correctly. Another tag that needs an attribute to work correctly is an image tag. So img, I'm going to type img, and I'm going to hit tab. And you'll notice that the image tag it has an opening tag. It has two attributes by default, but it doesn't have a closing tag. This is called a self-closing tag, and it's not necessary to have a closing tag for image. It's just self-closing. It just has an opening tag and its attributes, and that's fine, and that's okay. There's no, so this would be, well, you see, I can't even do it. See, image. This isn't a thing. You don't have to close it, okay? Just leave it like that. And then the src attribute in image, that stands for source. And the source is where you put in between your quotes what image you want. So you can either have like a folder called image. You can create like additional, I'll show you how I did that. I just hit the folder button, hit image. You can have an image folder, and typically that's how you'll have images on a website is you'll download and save in Photoshop or size your images and put them in your image folder. And then access them by putting like / and then go to image. The / means go out of this directory and go into the image folder. And then you'll hit enter, and then all your images will show up, and you'll select what you want, and it'll go here. But how we're going to do it here is I'm just going to grab and I'll just go to Google and type in golf, and go to images, and I'm just going to right click on this image here and say copy image address, and then I'm going to click into my source and hit Control V or Command V to paste it, and that's the image address. And then my image, since we put that address in, that image from the internet, it's basically linking out to the image in the image tag, and it's showing that image now. Now, the next, you'll notice that this image is side by side, because that's because by default images are what's called inline. They're called inline elements, which means that they go side by side other elements by default. And we can change that by making this a block, what's called a block style element. And I'm just going to add another attribute to my image to do that called style. And then in the style attribute, I'm going to hit display block. This is CSS, guys. We're not going to be learning that right now, but I'm just doing this to show you another image. And see how I saved, and now it's stacking because now it's a block image. You can also do attributes for images of like height and width to change the height and width of an image. So we can say height 400 pixels to make it taller. Okay. And then you can do width as well. But again, that's not recommended. In modern HTML, we don't use height and width inside images. We use CSS for that. But it's just another attribute. And then, so we have the source. We put our source in there, so an image is showing up. And then the next one that is always going to show up for images that you should have most of the time is called alt, the alt attribute. And that is, you're just supposed to put text in there that describe the image, and that helps people who have like vision impairments know what the image is or know what's supposed to be there. Or if the image doesn't show up, the alt text will show up. You know how sometimes you load web pages and it'll have like a red X and then it'll say text? That's alt text. So we just want to describe the image and say golf club. We'll just say like golf club for the image, and that describes it, and we'll hit save. And it's not going to show up here, but if our image doesn't load, golf club will show up. So another popular tag that you'll see is going to be, we'll go with, it's called div. So I'm going to type div, D-I-V. That stands for divider. And I'm going to hit tab. And this is this one with an opening tag and a closing tag. And divs are like your ultimate utility HTML element. They're used everywhere. And what they are is they're like little invisible boxes that you can put different stuff in. And once you have all your boxes with different content, you can style them with CSS to actually make the web page come to life. So just to give you an example, like a div of what divs are. Up here, this whole bar could be a div. This is like a separate div, and then all the scores are up here, or all the score boxes. This is another div, this bar right here, and then within this div, there's other divs that contain this information. This whole thing is a div. The sidebar is made up of separate divs that were stacked on top of each other using CSS. This is a div. So divs are basically they're like the main building block to web pages that you put your headings, your paragraphs, and your links and images in. Okay. And we'll build out an HTML page, and I also have several projects on the channel that we build out that are actual web pages like this that look professional. You'll get a better understanding of how divs are used and exactly what they are. It's kind of like an abstract thing to learn at first. You're like, I don't get it. But when you start building web pages, it'll make sense. It'll sink in. So within the div, you're supposed to put like other elements, like an H1, like we'll just put heading in div. And then we'll open that up here and update it. So that you can see the div is a real thing because the heading's in there. Or we don't even need to put the heading though. We can just put this as a div, and the text will show up. See, this is a div. Now it's not a heading. It's just showing up as like paragraph text pretty much. We can give the div some styling here. I'm just going to put, this is the style attribute, and this is like CSS. back in the day, the only way that people would use CSS and styles was inline like this, and it was really sloppy. That was like in the 90s. We don't do this anymore. You never use inline styles in professional development, really, but this is still a thing that it can be done. So we can say style. We can give it a border of 1 pixel that is solid and black. And guys, don't worry about this. I'm just doing this as an example. You don't have to remember this. And then we can give it a height of 400 pixels and a width of 400 pixels, so like a square. And we can save. And now there's a black box around our div. See, the div is a real thing. Like I said, it's the building blocks of a website. So now there's a box here. And then within that box, I can center the text if I wanted to by saying text align center. And now it's centered. Okay, so just different stuff like that. But this is what a div is. It's your main building block for a web page, and it's going to be how you structure it. You're going to be using divs a lot. Okay. All right, and so the last thing we want to that I'm going to go over for this HTML tags is semantic tags. So what semantic tags are is they're HTML tags that describe like what's actually happening on the page. And it's best practice to make your tags as semantic as possible to help with search engine rankings and just overall code readability from like other developers. So I'll show you what a good example of semantic tags and what they are here. I'm just going to drag this web page over. And this is from w3schools.com. W3 Schools, guys, this is like the W3 Schools is like the governing body over HTML and like a lot of web standards. And they've been around since HTML was created. And they have a website that has a bunch of great resources for remembering HTML attributes, and anything about coding in general is all on here for all different languages. A lot of times when you search stuff, when you look up code online, you're going to be going to W3 Schools articles are going to be number 1 on Google. So get familiar with that. But this is semantic elements in HTML, and this just describes what they are and how to use them. So for example, if you're building this is like a typical HTML document here. You'll have like a header first. Okay, so like let's go back to ESPN, and like this is probably the in header tags. This is the scores. This is the header of the page. And then you'll have a nav for navigation, the nav tag. So the nav tag, all of these are in between the nav tag, all of these different links. And then you'll have different sections. You're supposed to label each section of the page with the section tag. So each one of these sections could be different sections. So this could be like the main article section. This could be another section. This could be another section. And then article could actually be for all the articles. You could put each article within an article tag. So let's say you click an article, and all of this content down here should be in an article tag. Okay. And then the aside is used usually for sidebars. So this is called a sidebar, and this is a sidebar on the other side. These are going to be put in aside tags. And then footer. So the footer is going to be on the bottom. We know what a footer is if you use like Word document back in the day. A footer is the footer. So let's see if I can find a footer here, because that page is like infinite scroll. So let's see. Here's a footer. So this footer information would be in between the footer tag. Okay, so those are what semantic elements are. So if we were gonna make like a brand new like dummy page, I would have like I'm just gonna get rid of this really quick. Or actually, I'll just go above everything. We could say like header. Oops, not head. Sorry. Header, and then say this is my header, and then we could say nav. This is my navigation, and then we could have a section. Say this is my info section, and let me go ahead and pull up the page so we can see it here. There you are. Okay. So this is my header, this is my navigation, this is my info section. And then at the bottom of the page we would say footer. This is my footer. Okay. And so these semantic tags, like you're not going to see anything really differently on the front end of your web page or on the part you can see. This is just in the background for browsers to know what's going on. And then for like other developers, if they're looking at your page, they don't want to see everything. Like technically you could put everything in a div. Everything could literally be a div on your page, and that's how it used to be in like the 90s. But that's not descriptive, and it's harder to read that code, and it's harder for the browsers to know what you're doing. So instead of using the generic tag for everything as a div, you want to make your HTML pages should be semantic. Okay. And again, this will all make more sense when you start building real projects, or if you start following other tutorials that are building real projects. It'll all snap into place. If this seems pretty hazy right now, this is your first time learning this stuff. I was there. We were all there at one point. We were like, what the hell? But I promise this will all make perfect sense. So, but just know, in this video, all I really wanted to cover was like what an element was, opening and closing tags, what an attribute is, and how some tags are self-closing, like the image and image tag. They don't have a closing tag. If you at least know what that means off of this video, you're doing great. Keep it up. And we'll go ahead and I'm going to end the video here, and then we'll see you next time. We'll talk about headings and paragraphs and typography of websites more in depth here with HTML. All right, thanks for watching.